Welcome, everyone, to our last episode of Knit a Spell for the fall season. Mixed feelings.
Ugh.
Yeah, I have back owner of Skein Shop, Sasha Ogden. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
It just seemed fitting that you should help round things out with us since you helped kick things off. And we had so many grand plans that we can enlighten people on, inspire people with in terms of reality of life.
Here's how you make plans, and here's how you deal with what happens after you make the plan.
That's right, because now that we're at the end of the season, it's almost like the unofficial theme was go with the flow, which I don't know about you, Sasha, but I'm not that kind of
That
person.
is actually not my forte. No. You you know why I like to do fiber arts? Because I get to be in charge. I get to
Ah,
decide,
yes.
I want this to be this color, I want it to be this size. Oh, I don't like the decreases that this pattern called for. I'm gonna put in the ones that I want.
Now that I've been interviewing so many people this season, that seems to be a common theme, especially if you end
Whoa.
up being a designer. Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm your host, Katie Rempe, designer, knit witch, and your companion in this magical making podcast. Together, let's explore the enchanted world where knitting meets the magic of the craft.
So go with the flow is a good challenge. It's a nice reminder to don't sweat the small stuff. What's small stuff? Well, it's all relative, I guess.
Life will help you find out what that small stuff is because suddenly you're like, oh, I guess it's okay if an episode goes a day late or if it doesn't happen 1 week because you've experienced a major hurricane. Life goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to be fair, while I didn't plan on living through 2 hurricanes this season, I also didn't intend on knitting like a whole spread shawl that was inspired by keeping my sanity during that. So,
Well, you see,
bright
there's
side.
silver linings, right?
We've had quite the season, and I thought it would be fun to kind of recap on a couple of things that we started with, one of which was releasing our Count Your Blessings Cowl pattern.
Yes. That was so fun to collaborate with you on a design. We've been friends for how long? And we've never really worked together in that way. So that was super cool and different.
You're a wonderful person to collaborate with because you actually do stuff and you are patient with me who takes longer to do stuff. But we got there,
We
and that's the
did.
most
I mean,
important
I
thing.
have a cowl. I don't know about you.
I have two. I mean, I have the one that was green, and then I did this one while I've been in Florida for like the past 4 months, which this is just the worst color to take a picture of because you can't see any of these fine details until you get really close.
Ooh,
So it's almost intentionally hidden in a way. So
there
you
you
have to
go.
like know what you're looking for in order to see it. It's very accidental occult cowl. But you were even more industrious than I. You not only started laying out the pattern that we had hoped to have published by this time, which, spoiler alert, is not happening, but feel free to follow on Patreon because that'll be a fun winter break project.
Yes.
You also converted the Count Your Blessings cowl from a knit pattern to a crochet pattern.
Do you want to see? Here it is.
Yes, please.
Oh,
So beautiful.
thank you.
If I hadn't known offhand that it was crochet, that it would have even like struck me as being crochet, other than maybe like the lines kind of going the other
Yeah,
direction,
I think when
perhaps.
you see the backside, so the plain side of things, I think that looks more like typical crochet.
Really cool.
Thank you. It was such an interesting challenge.
What were the things you learned while converting knit pattern to crochet? Because I am not much of a crocheter. I did like the one giant granny square Afghan and was
Yeah.
like, double crochet. Cool. There we go. Done.
Well, so the biggest challenge for me, I'm gonna back up and I'm gonna tell you why I wanted to do a crochet version in the first place. I was thinking about making the baubles in knitting and how there's so many different ways to make baubles in crochet because of kind of the flexibility of how crochet stitches are formed. It gives you some different possibilities. So there's puff stitches, there's popcorn stitches. And I was like, this is like the perfect opportunity. And looking at our knit version, I was like, it's so simple. It's like, it's some ribbing, it's 2 textures, it's some bobbles. I can totally do that in crochet.
Oh.
And then I realized that actually I didn't know that many different ways to do texture in crochet. I know different stitches. I know
Oh.
how to do surface manipulation looking things. I know how to do lace. Crochet is so good at lace. I just didn't have kind of the pre-existing knowledge of crochet
Mm.
textures.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had fun digging through my stitch dictionaries and my pattern books looking for inspiration, seeing how can I make 2 different textures. And here's the tough part is they need to be the same height because crochet stitches can be all different heights.
Huh, tricky.
Yeah. And it would have been so easy to, like, say, do the bobble panel on solid double crochet and then, like, do a lacy something for the rest of it, but I liked how simple and neutral our knit design was. I really wanted to preserve that in the crochet. So what I came up with was working into the 3rd loop, which for people who crochet, you'll recognize. I can't show it to the camera and see what I'm showing. Haha. You'll recognize these chains across the front that look just like the chains at the tops of the stitches that you make because that's what it is. So when you work in the 3rd loop, it tips the top of the stitch forward, and that's
Oh.
what makes that.
So you're not well, I mean, you are making, like, that chain, but that's not the time that you're making it at.
Right,
That was,
right.
like,
So
the row
every
behind it,
chain
just
is
below it.
actually prepped the row before. It's working into it
Oh.
on the next row that tips it forward and makes it form that texture.
Whoa, cool. How did you figure that out?
It was a technique that I had seen before. It might have been an interweave crochet pattern that they had done a whole hoodie. They worked it side to side so that those chains ran up and down, and they're like, this looks just like knitting because it makes
Oh,
kind of those
okay.
V's. So, like, if you
Mhm.
imagine with it that way, that would really look like knit
Oh,
fabric, right?
yeah.
So I remembered seeing that and thinking, oh, that is such a distinctive texture. How can I bring that out? I was very happy to discover that the way that the 3rd loop kind of stretches out, it makes up for the slight height difference of working slightly lower. I'm happy with it.
Oh, congratulations, way to problem solve.
Thank you.
Things that are, quote, "Oh, this is gonna be easy," as we thought even with the knit version. Well, that
It's never
that quickly
easy.
went out the window. "Oh, right, we're making it in 9 sizes, I forgot."
I did
Ah,
also I got to knit it. I got to crochet it twice because I ran out of yarn the first time.
right, because crochet take more yarn,
Crochet
though.
takes more yarn, and you'll notice that my crochet version is larger than my knit version, it's bigger around.
Oh, okay.
Part of that is that I didn't perfectly get gauge on my knit version, don't tell Katie.
What? I didn't hear anything.
And part of it was that I really liked the proportions on the knit version of how much bobble panel there was versus how much of the rest of the cowl there was. And so by the time I had allotted enough stitches for the bobble panel, I needed that many more stitches to kind of keep the visual harmony of the proportions. So even this version where I did not run out of yarn, it was really tight.
The yardage is tight,
The
not the
yardage is
stitches are
tight. No,
tight,
no, the
right? Okay.
stitches are not tight. The yardage is tight. I was playing yarn chicken at the end here. If you want to make one and you are worried about running out of yarn, I have a few ideas on how you
Ah,
change things so that maybe you are less worried. So the most obvious solution is exactly what I said I didn't want to do, which is eliminate stitches from the plain section that goes around. So instead of having 84 stitches around the cowl, you could make it 75. Because there's no patterning going on the backside, however many is fine. That will change the proportions of the bobble panel to the not bobble panel. The other thing you could do is you could eliminate one of the rounds between bobble rows. So I have 4 plain rows in between, and if you did 3, then you would have so much yarn. But again, I liked the spacing, I liked how it looked, and I had enough yarn, and this version has 7 bobbles, and when I was done, I went ahead and I crocheted 6 more bobbles to make sure that if you did all 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that you would have enough. It's a squeaker,
In
though.
theory.
In
Yeah,
theory.
it's a squeaker. What you're gonna wanna do is weigh the hank because even the yarn company, knowing from experience as the person who worked for the yarn company, they can vary a little bit. So
Mhm.
if you weigh it and it's over 100 grams, that is a good sign. If you weigh it and maybe it's like 98 grams, which is actually totally acceptable in terms of tolerance from the yarn companies, might want to be a little mindful that perhaps you want to cut it down a little bit. Or, of course, you could be like us, throw caution to the wind. And by caution, I mean your wallet, and just buy two.
Just buy 2. Well, and I had the brilliant idea, I don't know how many other people will think this is a brilliant idea, but I was like, you could buy 3 skeins, and then you could definitely make 2 for sure. You could make matching ones for you and your bestie.
Do it in two different colors and get creative, and then do the
Yeah.
opposite colors for the other person.
Oh, that would be cool.
Oh, like a best friend cowl.
Like those necklaces from the mall.
Yeah, it's just like, grown up a little bit in terms of concept. We did our version to be simple and to be more around like the number that you pick for the baubles, but I'm curious to know if you have any reflections on what intentions or layers could be different from the knit one versus the crochet one, since
Oh,
you knit it all
this is
and crocheted them both.
crocheted. This is such an interesting question to me because in magical terms, I see crochet as being so much more closely related to knot magic than knitting. Not that knitting is not related to knot magic, but that knitting, I feel like because all of the stitches are live on the needle the whole time, for me, I'm holding the one intention throughout and I'm really focusing on that one thing and it's not sealed until it's bound off. And that puts the stability into it. Because in crochet, each stitch is independently stable and you only ever have the one working loop, I kind of see it as being able to hold more discrete things in it because each stitch is kind of its own little miniature knot. And so I think, yes, of course, we designed this with the intention of choosing the number mindfully and having that the numerology kind of be the primary intention behind it. But I could see like setting an intention for each bobble.
Oh, yeah. I never thought about that. That's like the same reason that crocheters find knitting kind of scary in a way, because if you drop the needles, all the stitches could go
Mhm.
everywhere versus if you drop the hook, it's just the one that you have to deal with. And I do agree, even like the look of crochet looks more like knots,
Mhm.
knot magic for sure. Interesting reflections. Okay, well, now I'm even more enthused to give my mediocre crochet skills a shot in actually creating a version of the crocheted one. By the time you're hearing this, there will be a crocheted version of this pattern available for you all. So if you are part of our Patreon on Knit a Spell, you will get a copy of this, and that's where you'll be able to find it after the show or soon thereafter, because go with the flow, right? Even though
Absolutely. You know,
it should
it'll
be
be
ready,
published
but
when it's published.
very likely within a few days time of this if it's not already on there. Thank you so much for doing all of that extra work
It was
and just
fun.
being inspired to do it on your own.
I am going to, say some possibly unpopular things that you might need to cut. Um,
I love it. Dish.
that, so crochet was actually my first fiber art. That was the thing that I learned how to do first, and it was the thing that I did best for, like, a decade before I really got serious about knitting, and I loved it, and I made lots of things, and when I started knitting, it wasn't that I liked knitting better, it was that I liked the objects that knitting made better than the objects that crochet made. And then when I started working at a local yarn store and they needed somebody to make crochet samples and teach crochet classes, I discovered that perhaps part of my problem was that I am personally a little bit of a yarn snob, and I like things that are made out of beautiful yarns that feel good, that have amazing drape, and that when I was crocheting, I was not using those yarns. Those were not in my budget. And
Mhm.
when I started knitting is also approximately when my budget started changing. So this was a really great reminder that like the Simple Natural is a wonderful yarn, and it makes even this really simple crochet pattern just look so beautiful. And that's not to say that it can't be beautiful out of something that costs far less. It's just, I really, for the longest time, thought that I just didn't like how crochet looked or felt. And then I tried it out of different materials and went, no, I was just not setting myself up for success with my crochet projects.
I think we've all been there to some extent. So, live and learn, right?
Well, and I never want to look down on somebody for using what they can afford, using what's accessible to them. I always used to tell people, even when I was in grad school and completely broke, I mean, like they would ask, why do you buy expensive yarn? I mean, I was knitting with sock yarn that was $20 a skein.
Mhm.
And I said, the number of hours that I spend touching this, even if it had nothing to do with how the end product came out, if I am going to 300% more enjoy working on my project because I like touching this yarn, that's worth it for me because you spend a lot of hours with your hands on that project.
If you do the math of the time and divide it by how much it cost, it is one of the cheapest hobbies that you can have available to you. And the more you rip it out and redo it, the better the value is.
And you know what? I can say that the Simple Natural held up really, really well to being crocheted and ripped and crocheted and ripped. And when I had finished all but the last round and a half and ran out of yarn, usually if I'm ripping something completely out, I'll reskein it and steam it so that it's not all noodly. I
Oh,
think it makes my stitches look nicer when I'm working with smooth yarn. And instead, I just sat the half done one in my lap and unraveled it as I was crocheting the new one. Saved the
I love
time,
that.
didn't wind it back into a ball. It's fine. And it held up great. It didn't pill, it didn't stick to itself, especially crochet. Sometimes when you're ripping, the loops get stuck and you got to kind of pop the fiber tangle.
Yep, like working with mohair, real fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
This had none of these problems. So happy with how the Simple
Oh,
Natural rips out.
see, you might not think that that's something positive about a yarn. Rips out like a dream, but it really is.
It is. It's important.
Huge benefit, especially as a designer. I also found that crocheters' mindsets tended to be more flexible. I don't know if you found that, but like they were more willing to change a project or like ripping out wasn't that big of a deal. They were more design minded. They didn't have to follow things necessarily to the T and could problem solve more often. Did you find that at all?
It's funny, I hadn't thought about it until you said it just now, but I agree, and I will tell you why I think it is because of the nature of crochet. Number 1, crochet is faster to do than knitting. So if you rip out, you're going to be back where you were fairly quickly. It's less of a, oh my gosh, I'm ripping out 2 days worth of work here. It's also easier to rip back because all you have to do is find the one loop. With knitting, if you're ripping
Mm,
back whole chunks, you might run a lifeline. You might try to pick up all the stitches in advance. And then, like, what if you don't get them on the needle seated the right way? And the other piece of it is because crochet is independently stable, is the best way that I can come up with to put it. Oh, I forgot an increase. I'll toss an extra one in this round. It's not as big of a deal. Like with knitting, because everything is live at the same time, it just ends up feeling riskier to try
mhm,
that. Like, I have never seen I've seen so much amazing freeform crochet. I mean, and it's just brain erasing how cool some of these pieces are. And I would be really curious to see something similar in knitting. I don't know that you really could approach it without a plan. I think you could create some pieces out of knitting that have that very organic freeform look, but I don't think that you could design on the fly and go, "Oh, you know what? I do want like just a swirl of eyelash yarn right here, so I'm going to just do that real quick." The same way that you can
mm.
with crochet.
Yeah, I think the most organic knitting that I've ever seen is called like swing knitting. I don't
Yes! I
know.
was just talking about swing knitting with some friends earlier today.
Really?
Yes, yes, because, somebody saw a picture of a really cool cardigan that had, like, swing knit blobs all around it, and we were talking about, "Oh, how would we finish the neckline differently?" Because the whole cardigan is beautiful, but it needs a neckline, is what we decided. No shade to the designer.
This is just designers being
It
designery. This is
is.
what we do. Yes.
It's hard to stop looking at patterns and going, "I love that, but I'd do it differently."
Speaking of designers
Mhm.
being designery, recently was a little fiber festival. I don't know that anybody's really heard
It's
of or
pretty
really attends.
obscure.
I believe it's called Reinbeck. The Chicken Wool Festival. We were looking at all the photos that people were sharing because they go. Somehow they stay someplace and get there. It's in the middle of nowhere in New York. I've never been to one personally because it seems like going to Disney World for knitters and I don't like crowds. But something we noticed was that everyone seemed to be wearing the same thing. And I mean, the camaraderie is great. Lord knows I'd love to be that designer.
And I mean, like, I have participated in my fair share of knit-alongs. I love knitting along and making the same thing as a bunch of my friends,
That's accountability also, so that's cool.
and built-in problem solving where you're like, "This sleeve is weird," and they're like, "I know, here's how I fixed it."
Yes, but for me, and maybe I'm just like a butthead, I was like, "Man, if I spent all that time and everyone was wearing my same sweater that wasn't my design, I don't know how I'd feel about that." Also, how am I gonna find my friend? Everyone's, I guess, my friend at that point. So
You know, she's wearing the same sweater as I am.
so I messaged you about it and I said, like, what is wrong with me that I am turned off by all of these people wearing the same sweater at the same time in the same place? And you had the brilliant idea of perhaps in our spare time, because you know we're so good at it, developing another pattern that would kind of offer a similar notion of the camaraderie, but without the everyone coming out with the exact same design. You want to share some info about that?
Yes. Yes. Because Katie's absolutely right. She did. She messaged me when we were talking about it, and I was going, "Yeah, I feel really, like, unimaginative if I even just make something in the same color that it's shown in the pattern photo." Even if I love that color, I'm like, "I gotta make it my own somehow."
Yeah.
Then I started thinking about there was a knit along that Isolde did for a couple of years that I really loved that was called the Follow Your Arrow shawl, and if you didn't knit these when they came out, do yourself a favor, get the patterns, knit them, they're so fun. Because what it is it's a shawl where you're making choices at different places of like, do I want to do pattern A or pattern B for this chunk? And then on the next chunk, you can choose pattern A or pattern B. So by the end, there's something like 60 some unique combinations.
Mm.
So I knit that with a bunch of friends and we all came out with different shawls, not the same shawl, different colors, different shawls. And it was so cool and so fun. And I was like, I wonder if we could do a sweater like that.
A choose your own adventure type of pullover or cardigan,
Mhm.
or I guess maybe that's part of the
There you go.
choosing of
Pick
your own design.
pullover or cardigan.
I, of course, was like, yes, I loved those types of books as a kid. And I remember one of the, maybe like the most popular Skacel Magalog was one that basically had a very similar concept of it's a cowl template and then you can pick like these 3 cast-ons and then these 5 stitch patterns and these 3 bind off so that you could kind of pick and choose as you go, and the pattern becomes interesting to knit more than once because there's so many different options, and it's a great way for people who aren't interested in being a designer to still feel like they're having design choices, but in a safe space.
Yes, totally. Because have you ever been browsing patterns and going, I would love that sweater if it were long sleeve?
Mhm.
And like, yes, I could do the math to make it long sleeved. If you've got the short sleeve, you can just knit it longer. But like, how many decreases do you need when you get to the wrist? And
Mhm.
all of these questions that, if you have decades of experience, maybe they're trivial to you. But if you don't have decades of experience, you still deserve a sweater that has all of the elements that you love.
Yes. I want it cropped. I want it longer. Crops are not my
I
style.
only wear
I
V-necks. Anything that touches my throat, stop. Get it away from me.
ugh,
I can't handle it.
please don't slowly choke me all day long. Yeah. No thanks.
But it doesn't mean that it's a problem if you like turtlenecks. You wear your turtleneck and you love it.
Absolutely. There's a market for everything. Also, a pattern like that gives people a little bit more empowerment to not be so afraid of their knitting, to learn a little bit more like, oh, I didn't realize I could just do this or that. And so maybe after they're done with this, they go back to a pattern that they've made before and they're like, oh, well, I did wish that this had, one or two of these other things. Now I kind of have more of an idea how I could go about doing that. And you become a little bit of a designer, and then you become like one of us, a control
One
freak
of us.
who can't knit
One
other
of
people's
us.
patterns well. That's right. Nitty, naughty, nitty, naughty. Yeah. We have almost a year-ish. So if you enjoy the idea of this concept and you would be interested in us actually doing this, let us know your feedback. Like, what is a gauge that you might be interested in doing? Like worsted weight, like fingering weight? Because that's probably maybe where we'll draw the line is like,
Yes.
we're not going to make it for every weight of yarn,
No.
but maybe we'll make a series of patterns that are in different weights of yarn over time.
And also feel free to drop ideas of what you want. Like if you go, I love sweaters that have cool things right by the cuff ribbing. Okay, cool. We'll make sure that there's an option for that.
Yeah, or please make sure there's set-in sleeve option versus like raglans. This is the time to get it out and we'll see what we can do because all the things that we could brainstorm up maybe don't include the thing that you're thinking about. So help us consider all the options.
One sweater pattern to rule them all.
And then we'll come out with our knitting cult, but you'll all be unique.
Everybody must wear the sweater, and it will be so hard to determine who's a cult member and who's not because all of the sweaters will look different.
It's an occult cult. If you know, you know, and you don't say anything about it. It's sort of like Fight Club, but we don't fight about anything. So let's talk about going with the flow a little bit because things that were supposed to happen didn't happen, but things that weren't supposed to happen did happen. And one of those things is my spread shawl here, which I started.
I love it so much.
I did this during the hurricane, as all of you probably know at this point, and I have been working on a pattern. Is this pattern going to come out this month? It might be December. I have it at least in the works, so there's things occurring. Again, Patreon will be a great place to follow along on updates for that because it will be a free pattern for Patreon subscribers, but it'll also be on Ravelry, so don't worry. As a person who also uses runes and divination methods and tarot, I was curious about your feedback on this. Like, have you ever knit a divining cloth or do you use them at all in your practices? And how might you use something like this, which I've working title called Hex Shawl because it's a hexagonal shape. And I was like, that's not entirely what I'm meaning in the double meaning there, but I guess it could.
I had not put the hex and hex together until you pointed it out. Oh my gosh. Here I was just
Oops.
focused purely on the geometry. I was like, yes, it is a hex shawl, Katie. Good job.
Yeah, me.
Magic
Oops.
hexes.
So I don't know. Working title, maybe that won't be what it's actually called, but I kind of like that it has a double meaning there. So
It's
we'll
cool. I
see.
like it. Now that I get it, I like it. So have I made any kind of divining cloth? Do I use any kind of divining cloth? I usually don't. I try to keep my practice as simple as possible because when I overcomplicate it, then I don't do it because it's like, oh, all of that's in the other room and I got to clear off space on the table. It becomes a whole project. And sometimes you just really need to flip over 3 cards and like spend a minute thinking. That being said, when I do want it to be a whole project, I have a silk scarf that my great grandmother painted that I lay out and do a spread on. So it's not specifically an altar cloth or it doesn't have any like spiritual symbols on it, but I just like that it connects me with my family and it's pretty and I don't know what else I would use it for. So
It's very delicate, plus silk is
mhm.
super strong as a fiber.
That being said, as soon as you were holding up your shawl, I was like, you know what we should do? We should
What?
collaborate on a mini ebook of tarot spreads that go with the shawl.
Yes, because there's so many areas
Mhm.
for you to do things. Like you could just do one in the middle. You can do 3 around the top, or 2 on the side and 1 on the bottom or the top. Okay. Well, good. That will be in theory.
I'm sorry. Every
This
time
is
we
not a
talk, I
challenge,
feel like I
universe.
put another thing on our list.
Well, you know what? We have nothing but time. And this one, maybe we could do faster because it doesn't require knitting a
It
thing.
doesn't.
Here's what we'll do. I will dedicate myself to finishing the pattern soon. We'll do the crochet one for the Count Your Blessings. It'll be Crochet Your Blessings. Then I'll have this one figured out. We'll have it all done in December or sooner. And then you can be my test knitter that I
Perfect.
don't usually ask people to do because I have a weird thing about test knitting and asking people to do stuff for free. But I don't have apparently that problem with you. So, because you would tell me no if you didn't want to do it. So,
I would.
more bonuses that you can follow along on Patreon, because just because the podcast is ending for the season doesn't mean that the content over on Patreon is. So, yay. I guess we could do at least 6 spreads, right? Because it is the
Clearly.
number 6 shawl.
Ugh.
Wonderful. I'm very excited for that. So, yay. Thank you for the idea.
You're welcome.
Stay tuned, everybody. Speaking of upcoming collaborations, people can also look forward to potentially joining me and Heather from UU Yarns to do a quick knit along for my worsted river mitts. You have at least made the fingering weight river mitts in a past knit along, I believe. Is that
I
correct?
did. It was so fun. Actually, these live at my office because they are so wonderful. They're so quick and easy to take on and off, and you can type with them. And so here's the pair that I made. This is
Love this color combo.
yarn that I hand spun, and I didn't dye any of this fiber, but I blended it to get the colors that I wanted.
Whoa, that is very cool. Super magical. Layers on layers on layers.
I love it. And I ran out of the dark color, which is why I have this thicker band of the light at the top. But you know what? I really like the visual effect. I want to show you my favorite way to wear them because obviously this is warm, but it doesn't leave me much finger. So I like to turn just the inner cuff inside out.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So cool looking.
Yes. And it stays well like this. It holds that position kind of indefinitely. And so that gives me a lot more finger mobility when I want it. And if my fingers get cold, then I just flip it back down.
It's just that easy, people. What fiber did you use to spin it up?
Good question. So the blend that I did was 50% Coopworth, which is a long wool. And the Coopworth that I used for this was a kind of medium brownish gray color. I love Coopworth and I find it soft enough to wear next to my skin for the most part, but a lot of people might not. I have kind of tough skin. Wool prickle does not bother me. But I wanted some color and I wanted a little luxury. So the other half of it is a blend that is 80% dyed merino, 20% undyed tussa silk. So you don't really see any of the whiteness of the silk in the finished yarn because it got blended in so thoroughly. But the darker color was actually hot pink fuchsia before I blended it in. And then this dusty rose color was like a very pale, almost like a ballet satiny pink. And I love the way that blending them with the medium really kind of gave them a common ground and brought them together. And I think it's pretty great.
I love a heathered yarn. It adds so much more depth. How long does it take you to spin up yarn to make enough to do something like that?
This was pretty fast. I would say, honestly, the blending probably took me longer than the spinning did because I wanted to do multiple passes to get a relatively smooth, cohesive blend.
And are you using the combs or do you have like a machine blender?
I have a drum carder. Actually, Dave from Louette was very kind to get me a fabulous deal on a Louette drum carder. So I made bats and I spun it. And I think each one of these yarns was like one evening, like, sit there, spin, watch TV. Oh, this yarn's done. I'll do the other one tomorrow.
So fabulous.
It is my opinion that everybody who does knitting or crochet should try spinning at some point. That does not mean buy a wheel. That means buy like 2 ounces of fiber and wrap it around a pencil and just notice how twist moves and how more twist feels versus less twist, because it makes you see the yarn in the store differently. It helps you understand the way that yarns are going to behave because you'll have smarter fingers. You'll just understand yarn more deeply if you have tried spinning, even if you decide you hate it and you don't need to do it anymore.
Good point. And like you said, even having that little bit of knowledge, even if it doesn't turn into your next hobby, gives you a wealth of perspective on, oh, there are plies on this yarn. I know what that is now. I can unply it and see how many there are.
Yep. Well, and noticing, like, the angle of ply twist, like, how tightly or loosely is something spun, and knowing how is that going to affect the fabric that I get? How is that going to affect how this garment will wear in the future? It's all super valuable.
Yes, indeedy. What sort of things do you have coming up? Do you have any projects or
Um,
events or plans at all?
as far as shop events, I love consulting with people via email, so if you are trying to plan a project and you're like, "Man, I just wish I knew what these 2 colors looked like right next to each other," email me. Or if you're like, "I'm a new knitter, what's a hat that you think I could tackle?" Email me. I would love to give you that kind of help and assistance if you don't have other sources for it in your life. On a personal level, I am deeply, deeply obsessed with Estonian colorwork mittens.
Whoa, oh, that's a light project.
So, like, here's a mitten,
That's a work of art.
here's a mitten.
Oh,
I only have 1 mitten, the other one is in progress, but here's a mitten.
oh my gosh. So stunning. And how long does one of those take you to crank out?
If I focus, 1 mitten, maybe 3 or 4 days. If I don't focus,
Sure.
the limit
Yeah,
does not exist.
infinity. Yeah. Well, of course, that's I suppose for everything, yeah. Wow, okay, well, I'm impressed in, like, the 2 to 3, 4 days or whatever, that's pretty cool.
The
I
color work is
have
very
so
Moorish for me, where I'm like, "Ooh, but just 1 more row, and then I get to do the"
I see. I am just, like, anxious to get back to the stockinette because I don't wanna have to pay this much attention. I admire your patience with color work. I could barely even do it for my sigil cowl. Even that only had 8 rows. And I was like, "Ah, can't wait to be done with this."
Wait a minute. You're the one who designed that enormous blanket cape that had color work that you even had to, like, strand on the purl side.
Yeah, well, that should have given you a clue that I didn't know much about what I was doing to be like, "Yeah, do it flat. People will love doing that." And but also, did you notice there was only, like, 4 sections where there is
That's
kind
true.
of that super easy color work that you don't have to float because it was, like, 2 stitches by 2 stitches and never more than that? It was a lot of, like, color blocking.
Yes. Yes, that's true. It was more stripey than it was color worky. Well, so this kind of, ties in to the whole flowing with the flow thing, that when I am stressed out, there are 2 kinds of knitting projects that I need, and I do, in fact, in addition to my Estonian mittens, have a much simpler thing, because sometimes you just need, like, miles and miles of stockinette, brainless, like, just get that kind of meditative flow state going. The other thing I need is something that takes up almost my entire brain so that I can't be on the anxiety hamster wheel of
Ah.
everything else. So that's where the mittens come in. Like, if I'm focusing and counting and making beautiful mittens, I get mittens and I get a break from the brain scream. Um,
I like that. The brain scream shawl or something. The brain scream colorwork mittens. Yeah.
yes.
Silence the brain scream. I love it. Oh, I totally understand this way of thinking, and that is brilliant. Good tip. Let's do one more color poll
I
to
love this. I'm
advise
so excited.
folks on what will the energy be that can help us through this break time. So the podcast will be back on March 5th. I also plan on doing maybe some repeat episodes of really early episodes that I had cool guests on that maybe a lot of people haven't gone back into the archives and seen, even though there were so many great people.
You have an incredible roster of guests. I know there have been a couple times, shamefully, that I have messaged you and been like, "This person would be so cool to have on," and you're like, "Yep, they were awesome. You should watch the episode."
That's okay. It's my job to do the show, not your job to remember and watch all of the show. So, and that goes for the viewers too. You have a life also. Anytime you choose to watch or listen, I'm appreciative. So don't worry. And plus, I always want to have people back on. If you are listening and watching right now and you're like, oh, I wish so and so would come back, let me know and we can see if we can make it happen. But this color can give us some guidance while you're enjoying past episodes and going through holidays and the new year and all that other stuff. I don't have my bag of cards, but I have a lot of yarn. So I'm just going to choose from the stash pile that I have a reasonable amount
You
of.
need a satellite
Don't judge
stash. Come
me.
on.
Oh, I do. I have yarn everywhere. Don't worry. So, all right, let's see which one has some guidance for us. Oop, okay, this one almost fell off. So it's this guy. It's a
Ooh,
sky blue.
I love it. Okay. Blue skies are coming, even if you can't see them right now.
Keep calm and knit on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the healing. It's coming.
Yes.
The sun will come out.
It's always there. It's behind clouds right now.
That's right. Clouds don't last forever.
Mm-mm.
We just got to wait it out. Hopefully, that will offer you all a little advice that I think we could probably take no matter the time. And if you're conveniently working in this color, let me know because I'm always interested to know what people are making.
You've got the worsted weight river mitts coming up. River, water, blue.
But of course, look at you. It's like, you should work for me. You're a better promo person than I am. All right, so before we wrap things up, just a reminder that if you want to support the show, you can always do that by joining on Patreon. It's just $5 a month. Even if you're only there for 1 month, it's helpful. If you're there for 3 consecutive months, you get a free Knit a Spell sticker sent right to your door. That's pretty fun. Put it on your water glass or stick it on your laptop, or don't ever use it because stickers are precious. Don't use them. Sasha, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your time, your crochet efforts, your ambition. Please remind people where they can follow you and find out more about your shop and all that good stuff.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is always just such a treat. If you would like to visit my shop, it is skeinshop.com. If you would like to email me for, those photos of colors or pattern recommendations or just to say hi, it's info@skeinshop.com. There is an Instagram and it doesn't get updated because there's just one of me and only so many hours in the day. So don't let that fool you. We're alive and well.
Nobody ever sees anything on Instagram anyways.
And they're killing hashtags. What's going on?
Hashtag no hashtags. The irony. They trained us so well just to rip it right out from under us.
Isn't that always the way?
As always, I will link everything to make it super easy to follow and email Sasha right in the description. And remember, you can join us in the after show hosted on Patreon, which is another thing that you get to unlock for the $5 a month. Like all of these episodes this season have had after shows. There's been tons of stuff from prior seasons that are up there. It's a wealth of entertainment that can give you many hours of distraction while you're knitting. All right, everyone. If I don't see you before March 5th, that's when the new season will be upon us. So until then, merry make, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes or Spotify, and supporting us on Patreon to enjoy exclusive content. You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to receive a notification whenever a new episode of Knit a Spell is released. And as always, I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode, so be sure to leave a comment on YouTube or on Patreon. See you next week!